Well, hello, everyone. How's it going today? Excellent, excellent. So there's a couple things I want to clarify. I was going to be respectable today and wear shoes and things of that nature. And Chris said to me yesterday, we all know you're not respectable, don't bother. So I said, okay, fine. I'll come up with my flip-flops because that's what I'm used to. The other thing is, he said I'm a self-proclaimed IT nerd, okay? So that's only when I'm being formal. That's when I'm being serious about my title, okay? Typically, I say I'm a computer nerd. It's a little less formal, less professional. So who is this computer nerd and what is he doing here today? All right. What I kind of want to talk about today is what we're doing in our organization to change the way we look at a more traditional role, which is HR and employee development. What we'll talk about is kind of some of the things that we've run into, and I'm sure you guys can relate to on the more traditional performance evaluation type model. And then we'll move into an ongoing experiment that we've been doing for the last 2 years on how we've kind of changed that model and changed it to focus more on the employees rather than on the company. After that, we'll tell you about some outcomes and hopefully give me a shout and we can talk about more details on how to make that work. So without further ado, okay, we're all here for business agility, right? And I personally believe, I don't know about you guys, the foundation of business agility or any agility is the people, right? People doing the work, right? So unfortunately, I think a lot of times our organizations aren't really built around the people, they're built around the work. What are your structures built around? All our org structures are built around functional silos and the work to be done, right? And I think if we're really going to enable business agility, we need to change that within our organizations and our organizational culture. And why do we need to do that? For one thing, the nature of our work is changing, okay? How many people have work email on their mobile device? Okay? Yeah, I do too. How many people check it after hours? Oh, about the same number. Shocking. Okay. So our culture is kind of this always-on culture. And so the first thing I want to talk about, and the first thing I say to people when they come join our organization, and I think you guys can agree with me on this, I don't believe in work-life balance. I don't see any hands raising. Okay, fine. Well, I don't believe in work-life balance. And let me tell you why. I'm going to take some liberties and use some generalizations, okay? The first generalization I'm going to make, which I know is not true, but we're going to go with it for now, is that everybody in this room sleeps for 8 hours a day. Pretty sure everybody gets their good full 8 hours in, right? Yeah, okay. Good, a couple of us. Now, I'm going to just generalize that. There's 24 hours in a day, and 8 of them you're asleep. Okay? So what's that leave? 16. 16 hours in a day. Okay? What do you do for half of that 16? Work. We work for the other half of the 16, or half of that 16. And then what do we do for the rest? Work. Right? And even if we're really good at shutting off and not checking our email after work and not doing work things after work, which I know a lot of us are getting better about because we're more aware of it than ever when we spend all day like this, right? But even when we're not, have you ever had a bad day at work and that rolls into your family at home?
Never.
Never, exactly. What about vice versa? When you nearly beat the children before you walked out the door that day, does that roll into work? Never, right? So this entire concept of work-life balance, I think, is flawed because I don't think it really exists. If you spend half of your life, half of your waking hours at work, that's a pretty big part of your life, right? That's huge. So I think it's all your life. So there's no such thing as a distinction between work and life because it's all your life. We spend way too much time at work to try to force some distinction. And if you're here, you're probably here because you're super engaged in your work. And a lot of us are now. So we can't just shut it off. So work is a part of our life, and I think we need to start acknowledging that. Okay? So that's the first problem. First thing that's changing. The second thing that's changing is, I don't know if you guys have heard of this, liquid workforce. Okay? So the idea is that the modern workforce, people probably in this room, you don't get a job and stay at that job for your entire career. How many people have been at your current position like your whole career? Or not necessarily your current position, but for your same employer? Just a couple. Okay? That's just not what we do anymore, right? We move around. Okay? All right, so I'm going to offend maybe a couple of people that have been in their position a long time, but one of my colleagues, Tim Gifford, he coined Gifford's Law, and I want to know if you guys think this resonates with you. And I'm really going to offend some people, so I apologize already. Okay? He says if you've been at an organization in the modern day, if you've been in your organization for more than 3 years, it's for one of two reasons. Can we guess which they are? Reason number one, you love your job and your company. Reason number two, you're unemployable anywhere else. And we laugh about that, but sometimes I kind of wonder, right? When I work with different people. So this liquid workforce, people are switching jobs all the time. And what's one of the leading cause of job switches? Do you guys know that? Poor management, poor leadership, right? People don't feel supported at work. Okay? So, how do we develop people and support people at work today? Through the performance evaluation, right? What's the worst day of your year?
Performance evaluation day.
Performance evaluation day, right? Wrong. Well, that could be, that's a really good point. She said the day after the performance evaluation. So that's very good. Now see, what I would say, the annual review day is the second worst day. The worst day is, the auditor's going to be here tomorrow. But we'll go with annual review for this. So what are some of the problems with our annual reviews? First off, I believe they tend to be company-centric. We play lip service to like your goals and what we're going to do for you, but it's really, hey, if you get this particular project done, or I need you to do this, I need you to do that. And obviously, I want to feel supported as an employee because that's why people are leaving, because they don't feel supported. And then we have a performance management system that's tied into the company's goals and not necessarily my own. Okay, they're super inflexible. So we get an annual performance review, and how agile is it that I can't change my goals for the entire, how many people got their goals and they get going all year and then they get to the performance review and their manager goes, whip. That one went, we don't do that anymore. Oh, we didn't do that either. That project got moved. Oh, here's the one thing that you moved the needle on, right? It's just a really structured and flexible process. Okay, the other piece is it's impersonal. What's your career path? Well, in a lot of organizations, it's first year, since I'm a recovering developer, I'm going to talk from the developer perspective. Well, first you're a junior developer. Then you become a developer. Then you become a senior developer. Then a tech lead, right? What if I don't want to be a tech lead? Oh, well, then you can be an architect. Well, okay, now what do I do after that? So what we do is we take all these unique people, just like you guys. We take all these unique people and we say, here are the boxes we're going to put everybody in. Because these are the salary bands and these are all the things that have to happen, right? So here was our alternative. These are kind of the main ones we're going to talk about. So we've been doing this ongoing experiment for 2 years. And what we've decided to do is create a press release. So let's say you decide to join our team. First thing that we're going to do is I'm going to scare the heck out of you because you're going to schedule a meeting with me, and you're going to say, I'm going to give you this overview of this press release, and the first thing out of my mouth is, we don't believe in work-life balance here. And then I get the same look from the new team members as I do, and they go, what kind of poor choices am I making in my life? But then we explain the idea, and they kind of get where we're at. And so then I'm going to ask you, I'm going to say, okay, so I'm going to give you 30 days. Now that you understand what this press release is, we're going to go over the press release, and I'll talk more about it in a minute. I'll give you 30 days, and then I'll schedule a meeting with you, and I want you to send your press release to me a few days in advance so I can read it, okay? And then we're going to go over it. And that's going to be kind of the kickoff to the long-term employee development process, okay? So here's mine. Now, we're not going to sit through and read it, but I kind of want to talk about what we like about it. So, first things first. You can see I've got up here for immediately released January 1st, 2025. That's because I did a 10-year one. I give people the option of 10 versus 5-year. Either way, you get to pick. I did a 10-year one, so you can see I did this in 2015. So this is mine from 2015. And if anybody wants it, all you have to do is contact me, and I will even send it to you so you can read the whole thing because it's cut off. Okay? Now, what we do is we say, okay, I want you to write this press release with this future date, and what you need to do is tell me, I want to ship this to the newspaper. What are you going to accomplish in the next 5 or 10 years? Okay? So instead of us telling you what your goals should be, we have you write a press release that says, this is what I'm going to accomplish in the next 5 years. Okay? Now, why do we like this? Okay? What are kinds of the things that we talk about in here, and what are some of the common questions? Okay? First off, the thing that I really like about it is it makes all us computer nerds uncomfortable. Okay, maybe that's not really what I like about it, but what I do like about it is it's really action-oriented. When I did this for myself, because obviously I dog-fooded this to say, like, is this something that would actually be useful? And when I sat and wrote down, I don't know how many folks out here make goals, they're like, and I say, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this. It's amazing the little mental shift that takes place when you say, I am going to do this. My list got a lot smaller, right? And the first couple, I was a little less strict on the press release format and the narrative. And people would say, I want, I want, I want. And when you look at the press releases that I received versus the press releases versus the I want lists, it was very interesting, the difference between the two. It really makes you start to think about what you really want, okay? The next thing about it is I don't want people to just write press release about their work career. I want them to write things about their life, okay? And that's a little scary for people. I make that optional, but as we'll talk about in a minute, most people put things about their life. It's pretty interesting that people like to talk about themselves outside of work, right? And what they're doing outside of work. So the idea here is you're kind of setting out your own personal development plan that's not only focused on work, but it's also focused on what you're going to be doing outside of work. Okay? Now, the next step, you're going to get this all written out and you're going to send it to me, and we're going to get together. And I'm going to review it, and as a leader, the most amazing thing happens when you read these press releases. Okay? One thing, the tone of the press release. You can learn so much about a person just by reading the way they structure their press release. There's one person on our team that I thought he was like super straight-laced, like, go in, knock out some code kind of guy. And when I got his press release, it was full of all these jokes and all these things, and it was hilarious. And you'll see like Star Trek jokes, and you're like, okay, so he's a Trekkie. He's not a Star Wars kind of guy, right? And so you'll see all these things, and you get to know just kind of a lot about their personality just by this, okay? Another thing, you get to know your folks based on like What are their hobbies? We've got one woman that she wants to open a yoga studio. Like, I had no idea, and that was really cool. You can give opportunities. We've got another person that likes to make custom furniture. Would you know if any of your team members like to make custom furniture? No, right? So we get to know that. So think about the implications of that, right? You also have an opportunity for people to connect on a personal level within the teams. Okay? So what sucks about these things? Because, with all the good, there's obviously some bad. So the first thing is we haven't solved the infrequent problem, because what we'll do is we'll create goals, personal and professional goals, from this press release, and then every 6 months we'll meet and we'll review progress on those goals. But that's still too infrequent, okay? Still not enough feedback. And so we've got processes in place where we're working on that, but that's the first problem. Getting over the this is really cheesy thing with a bunch of engineers is kind of a challenge. But it's also hard. But the challenge in it for people, like think about if you had to do your own. I had one guy write his own obituary, by the way, and I said, that's going too far. Another challenge we have is they're too personal. Once you get people talking about themselves, you get like one paragraph about work stuff, and the rest is all the stuff they want to do with their life. Okay? And the other side of that, personal, is blurry lines. So like, because I'll ask people like, oh, hey, we've talked to the furniture making guy about making some furniture for our office. Because if that's a hobby of his and we can make him, have him do that, that'd be awesome, right? But there's some other things like, if somebody says, hey, I want to get married and like do all these things, and you get on a one-on-one with them and you say, so you have a significant other? Well, no. So it's like, do we really say, hey, we'll get you a Match account or something like that, right? So there's some of these things where it's kind of hard to say, like, where can we step in and where can we not step in, right? Okay, but I want to talk about the outcomes real quick too. Okay, this was a quote from one of our team members. Nobody ever really thinks about what they want to do 5 years from now. We're always so caught up in what we got to get done today, we don't take time to think about ourselves in the long term. And so we were able to do that. Another thing, some teams have gotten together over beers and, shared them with each other. And people have made connections outside of the traditional work environment and work on cars together and things like that. I mentioned earlier, we could reward because, as you probably know, experiences last longer than monetary issues, right? So why don't we reward somebody with things that they're interested in, and then they'll remember that a lot longer than if you just give them a spot bonus, okay? Finally, my favorite one, people have quit. Because they did this exercise and they said, you know what, I realized I don't really want to be a consultant. And I said, great. And they went and found another gig, and that was okay. But it's important because it's helping them meet their goals, and we're creating an environment where people can be successful. Okay? So what I've hoped to do is to get back to this agile notion of people over process. And I hope you guys can go back and use some of these techniques or help me develop these techniques. Love to get feedback on it, ongoing experiment, and how you can create a better environment for your team. And finally, I was in the open space over at the American Management Association, and I saw this, and I think this quote from Richard Branson summarized everything that I wanted to say in this about business agility in this talk. If you can't see it, it says, happiness is the secret ingredient to successful business. If you have a happy company, it will be invincible. So that's all I have for you today. Thanks, everybody.